Hey. Oh, let me see if I can add you. I gotta figure out how to add you. Okay, there we go. Hi.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good,
Okay.
good. Nice to meet you.
Nice
So
to meet
excited to do this live.
you. Oh yeah, me too. This is my first one of the year, so I'm super
Oh,
excited.
nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
me too, actually.
Yeah. So we'll be learning all about macros. So I'll just go ahead and start with the intro and go from
Okay.
there. So, hey, Fit Fam. So, today we are going to be diving into the world of macros, what it is, what you need to know about it, and what you can do or how you can use macros to hit your fitness goals. So, today I am joined by Orvet,
Yes,
Orvet,
yes. Mhm.
aka the Macro PA, and she's gonna help us because we need the help. So, welcome first of
Thank you.
all, and you're welcome. And if you wanted to, introduce yourself, you go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure, sure. So yeah, as you said, my name is Orfat. I'm the macro PA. I'm also a physician assistant. So seeing patients there, have always been into health. Didn't discover macros until I had graduated from PA school, and I was someone that was always working out anyways, but I couldn't figure out like why am I not seeing the results that I truly want to see? Like I felt like I was doing the work, right?
Yeah.
But I felt like I looked like I was doing the work. Um,
Mm.
Came across macros. I took a course, became certified, all that good stuff. So that's why I'm here. So yeah, but macros have really changed the game for me. Really have.
Oh, that's amazing to hear, and I'm pretty sure a lot of women can resonate with that, like doing the work in the gym but not really seeing the results and
Hmm.
not knowing why.
Right.
So, first things first, as far as macros, what is it exactly?
Sure, sure. So many people are familiar with counting calories. So counting macros is really just a more specific way of counting calories. So if let's say you're counting calories and someone says that you need to have, I don't know, 1700 calories a day, you can fit 1700 calories of like three slices of cake in your day, right? You hit your calories, right? Like
Right.
you did the right thing, but did you actually have like the makeup of the things that your body needs to build itself in a way that looks fit, looks strong, looks like the way that you want it to look? So macros breaks down what those calories specifically should be. So if you add up all of your macros basically in the calorie count for each of those, it equals your total calories. So it tells you specifically your macros. Your macros are your protein, your fats, and your carbs. So that's essentially when someone says I'm counting macros, those are the three things that they're tracking. So essentially they are counting calories, but they are counting it in a more specific way than just counting the calories. So they're not just going to have the slices of cake and then they met their calorie goal. They're going to specifically have this much amount of protein, this much amount of fat, this much amount of carbs, so that their body is being made up of the correct things in order to build itself in a way that's showing their strength, showing their muscles in the best way.
Okay. So, proteins, carbs,
Mm,
and fats.
exactly.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, as far as macros for women and men, does it differ or does it depend on your goals or how does that work?
So I guess that's kind of a two-part question. So yes, it does differ. Whenever you are calculating macros, so for me as a macro coach, if I'm calculating someone's macros, your first thing that you look at is something called your basal metabolic rate. And you can go on Google and calculate what your basal metabolic rate is. Your basal metabolic rate is just the amount of calories your body needs to survive. So basically, for me, just sitting here, breathing, digesting, not doing any extra work, just sitting here to survive is your basal metabolic rate. And that depends on, are you male or female? What is your age? Um, and what is your activity level that you're doing? So that is basically just like the baseline of what you need to survive. And then as we're figuring out, okay, all of the things that you do, how many steps do you have? Do you work out? All those things, it's what's calculated as your total daily energy expenditure. And so that's going to be more than what your basal metabolic rate is because that takes into account your activity.
Mm-hmm.
And so if let's say you wanted to maintain your weight currently, as a woman and your current age, you would get a specific BMR. And your BMR, when you're thinking about it and you're calculating it, it is, granted, none of these know you specifically as a person. We're all slightly different, but it gives you a rough guide of, okay, what are the amount of calories that I need as a woman to survive? As a male, their calories are going to be a little bit more because they have a few more processes going on, typically more muscle mass, those sorts of things, in order to maintain that. So yes, it totally depends on being a male or a female. And then it does change. So if, let's say, if you have a goal, if you are trying to lose weight, your basal metabolic rate is not going to change because that's pretty
Mm-hmm.
set. But when we're calculating your total daily energy expenditure, if I calculate how much energy you expend right now at your current weight, if I have you eat that amount, then your weight will stay the same. So in order to lose weight, then you would need to eat a percentage less than what your
Uh,
total daily energy expenditure
okay.
is. Or, conversely, if you're trying to gain muscle or gain weight, you would need to eat even more than what your daily expenditure is for your current weight.
Okay. This is a
It
lot of good
is.
info.
It is a lot of info.
But that's why you're here. And for anyone new that's joining, Orvette is a macro coach. So if you need help with, well, actually, can you let us know what you do specifically with your clients so
Sure.
they'll know, how to proceed with you?
Sure. Yeah. So I have a few, two different offers. So I have, if you are someone who you just need to be told what to do, you don't need someone checking on you every single day. I have what's called a one-time macro count. So essentially you tell me, hey, this is what I do right now. This is my weight. This is my goal. Can you tell me the specific macros I need to eat in order to reach that goal? You don't need someone checking on you. You don't need someone like pushing you forward. So that's my initial offer. My second offer is one-on-one coaching. So those people, they get access to me every single week. I'm looking at their food. I'm diving in to see what they can do better. Do they need to increase their exercise, decrease it, manage stress, manage sleep? Like I'm really diving in week after week. And if, let's say, they hit a plateau or not sure where to go or what's holding them up, I am looking in and we are making tweaks and we are figuring things out based on the feedback. And so those people get a little bit more one-on-one. Of course, it's
Mm-hmm.
one-on-one coaching, but more one-on-one with me. It's a little bit easier to follow just because sometimes people, especially initially in your macro journey, um, sometimes when you're in fitness and you hit a wall, you're like, okay, this isn't for me. Like, I'm not going to do it. And it's easy to just be like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Versus, if you're one-on-one coaching them and someone's like, hey, saw what you did yesterday. Like, let's like jump back in and tweak this and do this. Especially at the beginning, it's so helpful for people to get that feedback because we're just not taught this. We just don't know.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And how are macros tracked? Is there an app
Mm-hmm.
or
Yeah,
okay.
there are various apps where you can track it. So MyFitnessPal, you can use MyFitnessPal. The free version does like just calories. You can force it to do macros, but it's a little bit of a fight on MyFitnessPal. Macros First is my favorite to use because it's geared towards people tracking macros. Um, and this is actually something that I really recommend that people do at the beginning, even if you're like not thinking about having a coach or anything like that. Is sometimes when I get started with people, I'm like, okay, tell me about your nutrition. And they'll say, I eat healthy. But healthy means different things to everyone.
Mm, yeah.
That doesn't really tell me anything. Before I started counting macros, I thought I ate healthy and I would, wake up and maybe having like acai bowl, and then later tracking macros, I was like, well, this is just sugar. I didn't
Ah,
this. There's
yeah.
no protein here. There's really
Mhm.
not much that I can actually use that would help me long term. And so, yes, there are apps for that. But what I recommend, if you are thinking about like, man, okay, I'm thinking about tracking macros, even just for myself, download an app. Macros First is my favorite. And then really don't change anything about your diet. Just track what you're eating, because then you'll know, oh, wow, I'm really not hitting like any protein like target. I'm really like not eating enough at all. Like, and sometimes you feel like you're eating enough and you track it and you're like, well, I'm eating way more than I initially
Mhm.
thought. Um, so I think a good like first thing to do as you're like getting into this is download an app, see how much you're actually eating, and then like look into where am I going. And I would say first goal would be trying to eat enough protein.
Yeah, I feel like protein is one of the hardest things for most people to do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you suggest for that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, usually it's initially it's difficult. I usually recommend, if you, let's say your protein target is, I don't know, 120 grams of protein per day. I recommend trying to figure out, okay, how can I balance this throughout my day? So if I'm having 3 meals a day and 2 snacks, I would divide my protein goal by 3 and figure that out and try and shoot for
Mm,
that each meal. And I don't typically recommend more than two like supplemental sources of protein. So like your protein
Mhm.
shake or your protein bar, I would say that would be it. Just because sometimes when you go overboard with like the extra ones that aren't food, those aren't really fun to eat,
Right.
right? Like you don't feel like food. But sometimes you mess with your stomach when you overdo it. Um, so I recommend just like figuring out what are meals, and you can figure out like your go-to meals that you can have over and over and over again that you don't have to think about that you're having protein.
Okay. That's a nice way to divide it up too. As
Mm-hmm.
long as you know what you need to hit, then you can spread it out throughout the
Right.
day.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that comes into prepping in advance too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
I've seen some of your stories and I see
Mm-hmm.
you meal
I
prep.
do.
So is that one of the keys to actually hitting your macros
Mm-hmm.
that you would suggest?
Yes. So that is the easiest way to do it. So usually what I do is at the beginning of the week, I will make a certain number of meals for me and my family. And that way I know like these are the meals I have. So at nighttime, it really now only takes me like 5 minutes or less to go into my app, and I will just plug in for breakfast, I have this prepped. For lunch, I have this prepped. For dinner, I have this prepped. And throughout the week, it doesn't really change that much because I'm eating the same thing. So once I figured it out one time for the week, like I've pretty much figured it out. The
Yeah.
only things that start to change for me are like the snacks and stuff like that. So most of the time when I have logged my 3 meals, I still have a lot of extra macros to work with. But for the most part, my protein is almost met just because I usually choose meals that are higher in protein. And then after that, I will just fill in the gaps. So I'm like, okay, I need some carbs here. Maybe let me add an extra, more sauce on this. Or maybe I can have this on a burger
Mhm.
bun instead of on a salad. Or like I just start to tweak little things. And the nice thing about having a plan is when I go into the next day and I wake up in the morning, I know I'm going to hit my macros. So I'm already kind of like, okay, cool. It's going to be a great day. I don't have to figure it out at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Also, it's kind of like a plan. Like I think that sometimes with food, we feel like there's a lot of guilt and shame surrounding food.
Mhm.
But I
Yeah.
think when you give yourself the permission to enjoy the food, especially too, like I'll put in like, oh, I might be craving like a chocolate bar or something like that. And I'll put my main meals in and I'm like, okay, I have space for the chocolate bar I wanted.
Mhm.
I'll put that in. And then the next day when I'm actually having the chocolate bar, it's like I can sit here and I can enjoy this. I don't have to sit here and think, oh man, I shouldn't have had this. I'm not
Yeah.
off. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's the planning is like the biggest thing. It's totally possible to do it without a plan. I don't recommend that at the beginning, especially because you don't really know what foods, like the serving sizes and the macros look like. But as you get going with macros, like you don't have to plan every single meal. If let's say you are where you want to be, you can just look at something and be like, okay, that roughly has this amount of protein. This has this amount. I've been tracking long enough to know like I've probably eaten enough for today. And just follow one other data point. So if that's your weight, or pictures or your measurements, just follow something so that hey, I am probably right around where I
Mhm.
should be. Versus, sometimes I'll get clients and we do really well together, and then I'm like, okay, you've graduated and gone off. Make
Mhm.
sure that we are still monitoring this somehow, even if you're not tracking every single thing.
Mhm.
Keep some sort of data point in your life. So if you're weighing yourself every few days, you'll know when things like if you're like, okay, now I'm like 10 pounds over, like, okay, I've maybe been overdoing it. Like you can
Mhm.
come back from that easily as you like tweak things back to your norm versus like you jump on the scale and it's been a year later and you're like, oh my gosh, I am 20 pounds heavier and how did I even get here? It's because now we have thrown things off and we haven't really paid attention to what was going on.
Yeah. Nice. So, thank you for that.
Sure, you're
And
welcome.
what are some of the common misconceptions when it comes to
Sure,
macros?
yeah. So gosh, I feel like there's quite a bit. When people are first counting macros, initially that there's this resistance, like I can't do it. How can you do something you've
I,
never done before?
I
Um,
always
or
thought it was intimidating, to be honest.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the learning is in the doing, I found with
Mm-hmm.
macros. Like the more you do it, the easier it becomes. It's kind of like, when you first started driving and like you had to have the music down and like you were driving and like everything required thought and effort. And then you'll start to notice like, oh, like I put that meal together and that's 30 grams of protein and I didn't even really like, that wasn't really difficult for me. I just knew like, hey, let me throw this together real quick. But the initial misconception is that it's hard and there's a lot of work. And I won't lie, at the beginning, it does feel like a lot, but it gets easier as things go on. I think another misconception, especially for women, is that it's restrictive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, And I don't think that that's the case. Initially, with macros, you have to weigh your food, right? It's about being precise. And so initially it seems like it's restrictive because you're being so precise with everything. But when you kind of step back and take a look at everything, you are now allowing yourself to eat everything, right? Everything is in a balance. And so I like to describe it as, if let's say you go to the bank and you have a certain amount of tens and a certain amount of 20s and a certain amount of fives. Now okay, I can use this amount of tens for this amount. And then by the end of the day, if you're out of your money, then you've done what you needed to do. But that doesn't mean that you can't ever have blank. It just means I might not be able to fit it in today, but tomorrow with my bank account replenished, I can kind of move things
Mm-hmm.
around and I can enjoy that then. So it's not restrictive, but especially if someone like has a specific goal. So if you're trying to lose weight, it does require that you have some diligence, and you're going to be eating less than your total daily energy expenditure, right? So, it requires that you are going to be restricting just a little bit because you're trying to lose weight. You're eating less than what your current body requires.
Mm-hmm.
But you shouldn't be trying to lose weight forever. You should get to where you want to get and be done and be at
Yeah.
maintenance, right? And then at that point, you can live your life. You can, have more fun things, but then it's in a balance.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And let me see. I had quite a few questions for you already, so I know I'm like spitting them out here.
No, you are, but this is good.
All right. And let's see. Can you provide any examples of some meals that align with goals for women that, like, for me personally, I do not like to cook. So I'll get like rotisserie chicken, this pre-made, or
Mm-hmm.
something I can throw in the air fryer.
Mm-hmm.
But what are some quick meals that you could think of, just or that you love
Mm-hmm.
yourself, that you would use for tracking or keeping up with your macros?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny because I don't like to cook either. The cooking is more of like a recent thing for me. Well, I'm not a fan of cooking. I
Yeah,
like eating. I don't like to cook.
yes, very
But
much
yeah,
so.
but I'm a fan of rotisserie chicken. I
Mm-hmm.
love rotisserie chicken because you can throw that with whatever. And I have rotisserie chicken always.
Mm-hmm.
So typically we'll get that. The rotisserie chicken will go either in a wrap or a quesadilla on top of a salad. Sometimes I have a rice cooker, so I put some rice in the cooker, put it on with some rice, maybe some beans. So the rotisserie chicken goes a lot of different ways. Another thing that I have for if let's say I haven't made any breakfast, I make something that's called pancakes in a bowl. Um, and so if you've ever heard of Kodiak cakes, they have pancake powder.
Mm-hmm.
The macro community loves Kodiak cakes, I think. But Kodiak cakes can be used in a variety of different ways. So what I like to do, if I haven't prepped a breakfast, I will typically get half a cup of Kodiak cakes. I'll throw it into a bowl, half a cup of water or milk. Milk obviously would have the higher protein count. So if I have milk available, I'll use that. And then I'll just take a teaspoon of baking powder, mix it all together, 2 minutes in the microwave, and you have this pancake in a bowl. And I'll just kind
Wow.
of drizzle it with syrup, and that's my breakfast. And depending on if I had used milk or not, usually that's about like 18 grams of protein just from the pancake itself. And then what I'll do on top of that is I'll have protein coffee. Again, the macro community loves protein coffee, but essentially what it is just like either some of a protein shake or protein powder, like a scoop, inside protein coffee, or excuse me, inside coffee. Make sure you use I use a handheld blender to mix it because if you mix it with a spoon, it's chunky.
Yeah.
He likes that. But if you mix it with a handheld mixer, it creates it's like a creamy latte. And so a lot of times after breakfast, I've really set myself on this trajectory of high protein for the day. And the rest of my meals may not be 30 grams, but they can be around there. And I'm still okay because my breakfast was pretty high.
Okay.
Yeah. But other things are you can make grilled chicken. They have frozen grilled chicken that you can buy. Sometimes I'll make that. Sometimes I'll even throw that on top of my pancakes for a grilled, instead of chicken and waffles, grilled chicken and pancakes.
Pancakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I'll use sometimes frozen meats. If you make some beef and just mix it with taco seasoning and just kind of put it in the fridge, and you can put it again quesadillas on top of a salad, wrap, those sorts of things, and just have meat that's just prepared in general. And then you can just put it in different ways. So if you're not a chef or don't like it,
Yeah.
there are ways.
Good, because that's exactly what I'll need.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
they're
what was I gonna ask you? Can you share any success stories of women that you've worked with that have chosen you as their coach, and
sure.
what goals they've reached?
Yeah, yeah. So I have, gosh, I don't even know where to start. There are a lot of them have like success in different ways. So I have some clients who essentially just wanted to create a habit of, being healthy. So we worked on habits that way. I have one client in particular that I can think of right now. So she's a physician. So she's busy. And she didn't want to lose weight. Her weight was actually normal for her height, but she called herself skinny fat. And so we were working on body composition changes, and she hasn't lost any weight. But her body is completely different from when she started. Like her, and I'll
Mm-hmm.
see if maybe she'll let me share a picture. Maybe after this live, I'll reach out to her. But her pictures are insanely different. And I really think, especially as women, I think we're always like, that 5 pounds, if I could just lose 5 pounds,
Yes, it's always five
it's
pounds.
always, and I promise you, nobody would know if you lost 5 pounds in a month, and someone saw you. A lot of times, like most people can't really tell that 5 pound difference. It's the body composition change
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing that makes it. So a lot of times I tell people, like, especially if you're someone who's been under eating, which most of my clients, when they come to me, they have been trying to like figure this out for so long. They have been under eating for so long, and then they'll binge all of a sudden, and then under eat, binge. Like they get to this point where they're like, I don't know what I need to do. I'm willing to try everything. I'm like, well, let's try eating. Let's try. So yeah, but it's so rewarding when I can see clients like they're so scared at first. And I like, it's such a wild thing where I'm like, hey, let's try eating some food. And they are so nervous to do it. But once they start to feel like, hey, I have energy. And those are like right at first, you're not going to notice the changes in the pictures or anything, but you notice like my mood has changed. I have energy. I can do things, you know, maybe things are fitting better even if I haven't lost weight. And then they start to put their worth in their fitness journey, not in their weight, but in like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing the work and look at how I feel. Look at
Yeah,
now I can see the pictures, and like my weight, sure, it's an important thing to think about, but it's not the only thing.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And that's the thing, body
Mm-hmm.
composition. Okay.
Yeah.
And then as far as workouts, are there any workouts that you would recommend to go along with the eating healthy, or it just depends on calories burned, or
So no, so the workouts are actually the thing that should not change
oh,
no matter what you're doing. So strength training is number one. So, lifting weights, lifting heavy, implementing progressive overload. And progressive overload, for me, I work out at home mostly. And so I don't have access to unlimited weights. I do what I can. But I try to implement progressive overload, not just in increasing weights, but changing the tempo of something. So instead of like quickly moving through a bicep curl, maybe I have 3 seconds coming up and maybe 3 seconds coming down. Now that's still asking more of my
mhm,
muscle because I've changed the tempo of it. Um, so there are different ways to go about doing it, but working with weights and strength training is ideal with a sprinkle of cardio in between. I think sometimes women get it backwards in that they are like, cardio is number one and they do
yeah,
mostly cardio. And cardio is great, wonderful for your heart and all that stuff, but it shouldn't be the biggest thing you're doing. Strength training should be number one with
mm-hmm,
the sprinkle of cardio. And that is the thing, like no matter what, if you are trying to maintain your weight, if you're trying to lose weight, if you're trying to build muscle, the workouts should not change other than if let's say you're trying to lose weight. Sometimes I sprinkle in the cardio a little bit more.
mm-hmm.
But other than that, strength training should still be it.
Number one. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's almost that time. I don't want to keep you on. I'd probably really ask you about 15 other questions,
Yeah,
but
I'm having fun.
I don't want to keep you too long. So if anyone has any questions, I don't think we have any in the question box right now. So, but I really, really, really appreciate you for coming on this live with me today, and hopefully we can do it again.
Yeah, I had so much fun.
Yeah, me too. And could you also, before we leave, talk about the different offers that you have for
Sure,
your coaching?
sure, yes. So first offer is one-time macro count. So essentially, I look through the information you'll give me. I have a form that you'll fill out. You'll tell me all about yourself, what you've been doing, how many times you've been dieting in the past year, and we'll figure out a plan for you. I will give you this plan and I will give you the numbers, talk to you about how to hit it, all those sorts of things. But once you get that one-time macro count, it's not an ongoing coaching relationship. So if you're someone who thinks that you're pretty, good to go, you can do it yourself, you can push yourself, that's it for you. That's actually a wonderful resource if you just need a little assistance. Other than that is my one-on-one coaching. And so that is, we go through same thing. The beginning process is still the same. You'll tell me about yourself. What are your goals? What do you need help with? And then again, I will follow you week after week, going through, what you've been eating, how your workout's been progressing. We will focus on different measurements. So I will give you a form to fill out every single week. And I'm going to ask you about those things, as well as you're going to have to put those numbers in so I can follow trends for you. And so my one-on-one clients, a lot of them, some of them, I've been a macro coach now for 2 or 3 years. I have a few that have been with me from the beginning. And for the most part, most of my clients stay on for about 6 months, but I have a 3-month initial commitment. And what that 3 months does is that gives your body time to change, as well as me time to tweak little things so that we can see those changes. So sometimes I have clients who in 3 months feel great. They feel like they can continue doing it on their own, which is wonderful. But sometimes I have some people who want to kind of switch things up, or we go on a break from dieting and go into maintenance, and how does that look like? So I walk them through that. And then in April, I will be doing group coaching. So that'll be coming in the future. So that's not quite yet. So if you're someone who needs something in the middle, you can't fully feel like you can do it yourself just yet, but you don't need someone, checking on you all the time, that will be that middle offer that's coming.
Okay. All right. That sounds amazing.
Thank you.
Love group plans. All right. Well, I guess that is it. And I want to thank you again for joining me on the live today. And any closing remarks or anything you want to leave with?
No, I just want to say thank you for having me. This was wonderful. I really think, especially in the African American community, I think health is so, it's not the norm. If someone's trying to, I know for me and my family, it's not the norm that, we're strength training or trying to well or anything like that. When I go to family functions, they're like, you're going to eat that? Or, and it's well, everything in a balance, right? So they're in shock that I can also have my macaroni and cheese today, or do they don't fully get it. And I really think that if we can get the education out there, because especially certain diseases are affecting us more than they affect other races. Right. And we know that, but where's the education? So I'm really excited about getting this out there, talking to more people so that they can figure it out and then pass that down to future generations.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we'll definitely have to do this again then so that we can help educate the masses.
Yes.
Because it's definitely not the norm. So,
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. And I hope I'm able to save this because I would love to just save this information. So I'm going to work on doing that. But thank you so much.
Yes. Alrighty. I will talk to you soon. And thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, you're welcome. Bye.